Hi, gang. It's Jeff, and welcome to our Tuesday night live stream. Joining me is our talented producer, Jill, who's going to help us navigate the questions tonight. As usual, we need to go through the standard disclaimer for the state of New York. Many of the questions we cover here are nuanced. We'll do our best to answer them, but our responses are meant to be directional, not exact. Your situation may require more details than we can give in a live stream. Therefore, this live stream is for educational purposes only. Also, we haven't had the chance to speak with you one-on-one, so please treat this information as general guidance, not advice to act on. For anything specific to your situation, make sure you talk to a qualified professional. All right, I think that just about covers it. Now, before we jump into the questions, you'll see down in the lower left-hand corner that today is the first day of our anniversary sale for my course, Social Security Simplified. For those of you who are new to the live stream, that was a labor of love. I probably put in 1,000 hours on it, certainly more than 500 last year, and it's something I'm very proud of. But some people had complained that we only offered 50% off during the launch. So we are at the 1-year anniversary, and we're going to offer 50% off for the course. It's completely updated for 2026. If you're interested in the course, go to holyschmidt.com/course and enter the coupon code 1YEAR and you'll get 50% off. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Jill to lead the way. Jill, over to you.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And thank you to all our listeners here that are putting in some really appreciative comments. We really are so grateful that you're here. So thank you for that. And Melody Beatrice 3353 wants to know what your website is. So maybe this is a good time to put that in there as well.
So the website is holyschmidt.com, like the YouTube channel. It was incredibly difficult to get that, but I got it. And on the website right now, you will see hundreds of articles, dozens anyway, that probably relate to you. But in about 2 weeks, we're going to be releasing a completely new version of the website, which will be totally user-friendly. And when you get to the website, you'll see it, and it will just be intuitive to you. Right now, it's great, but it's going to be even better in about 2 weeks. holyschmidt.com. And the course, if you're interested in seeing the course landing page, holyschmidt.com/course.
Okay, and so I've put the website into the chat box. I will also put the course in there as well in just a minute. But let's start with a question. As always, we will be taking your questions live. So please do put your questions as they pertain to Social Security into the chat box. And until those questions start arriving, we have received so many emailed questions. So Jeff, I think we're going to start there with an emailed question from William C. And he's asking, if I file for Social Security early at 63 and continue to work, I have to pay that Social Security back. However, I get that money back when I turn 67. Does that mean I am still locked in at the lower rate of 75% of max from 67 on?
So this is a great question for a couple of reasons. One, it's going to demonstrate how the earnings test works. And two, you can tell that somebody has my quick guide here. So if you look at the quick guide, you'll see that at age 73, if someone files for Social Security early, they get 75% of what they would have gotten at full retirement age. That's what William is talking about, the 75%. But his question is, what happens if I have to give part or all of it back because I'm still working? Do I get a lump sum payment at full retirement age, or does my payment go up, and do I get more than 75% of the primary insurance amount? Your payment goes up, it's recalculated, and so instead of 75%, it would be recalculated to whatever the equivalent would be. Conceptually, let's just say that today you filed for Social Security at age 62, let's say, and you never received enough, or you continue to work full time. You actually had to give all of your Social Security payment back. Well, by the time you reach 67, you wouldn't be at 70%, which is what you would get at age 62, you'd be at 100% because you never actually received any Social Security. The SSA then just recalculates it and they gross up your payment. Now, every time I say that, I have to provide the obvious caveat, which is they're doing it manually on the other end. So even though that's how the math is supposed to work, it's much harder to check them if you try it that way than to just wait until you're ready to file. So don't use that as a strategy. That's just how the math works.
Okay, someone is asking about how much, this is William Kalita, is asking about how much the course costs. And William, I did put the link to the course into the chat box, and whatever that price is, actually, 50% off.
It's $297, and 50% off, it's $148.50. And so it's half price. For $297, I think is out of reach for a few people, but $148.50 might not be. And it's something that we don't really do this. We'll occasionally offer $60 off for the live stream, but for 50% off, it's just because it's the 1-year anniversary. So check it out, see if you like it. Great landing page, talks a lot about things that relate to Social Security, including some of the rumors and all the stuff out there that scares you that you really shouldn't be afraid of. But more importantly, the course itself is, I'm told it's a lot of fun, at least until you get to the survivor benefits section. Then people get a little bit weary-eyed, I suppose.
Well, and fun. I mean, you think Social Security is fun, so I guess
I had some when we designed that course. I said, how can we make this fun? And so we have flashbacks to the 80s. We have people dancing in offices. It's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun making it because, you know, I got to make the choices to what went in there. So why not make it as fun as possible?
All right. Well, Easel has a question and is asking, every so often we hear that Social Security funds will be insolvent within X number of years. This always seems like hyperbole to me. Is it, or should we be genuinely concerned?
So I get this question every single live stream in various formats. One time somebody made a statement and then said opinion or comment. And it was like Social Security will be insolvent at the end of 2032. First of all, it won't be insolvent at the end of 2032. Bankruptcy is not one of the options out there. What the absolute worst case scenario, and I think it's highly unlikely, and I'll tell you why in a second, is that it'll be money in, money out. So in 2032, there will be what's paid out is basically what's coming in from current citizens who are paying into Social Security. That would be 78% of the current level. I also think that that's unlikely. And let me tell you why, and also tell you what's going on in the background, which makes me feel good about this comment, because I've been saying this comment for years. I can't promise anything. I'm not the government, but imagine what would happen if 70 million people who are receiving Social Security, a full 30% of them are relying on Social Security as their primary income source, all of a sudden get 22% cut from their Social Security payment. At best, you're going to have people who are moving in with the kids, moving back home with the kids. At worst, a lot worse would happen. So I think that like every other major event out there that the government has had to deal with, it will deal with this. That's my firm belief. I also, unfortunately, think it will deal with it like they do with a lot of the other major events. At the time, things are starting to fall apart, because when you're not in a current election year and Social Security doesn't deplete in a current election year, it's something that people just don't spend any time on. For us on this Zoom call, or on this YouTube call, on this YouTube and multicast, I suppose we're across a lot of different platforms now. When we're on this multicast call, it's really important that we get the answer to that question. For the average politician, they're not going to be thinking about it until 2030, would be my guess. Now, there are some good signs out there. There are two different bills in Congress right now, and I wouldn't get too excited about a bill. Usually the success rate is 2 to 3% of any bill that gets introduced. But there are two different bills in Congress that are really being discussed. One gives very specific information about not only benefits, but benefit increases, not decreases, increases. And it basically creates the donut that people are talking about, says the ultra wealthy will pay for it. The other, and I think it's more likely, is it's a bill to have a commission to discuss the issue. And a commission gives, unfortunately, you don't want, as a politician, you don't want to be on the receiving end of a tax cut or a tax increase, and you don't want to be on the receiving end of a benefit decrease. Either one of those as a politician is the kiss of death. If you're a party pushing one and it causes the other to happen, there's a good chance you won't be in the seat in 2 to 4 years. But if you get a commission together, like they did in 1981, the Greenspan Commission, and everybody holds hands and jumps in together, then what gets proposed is safe enough so that nobody has to have their fingerprints all over it by themselves. And historically, and I've talked about this many times, I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about it again. The Greenspan Commission was put in place in 1981. In 1983, the Social Security Trust was 2 months from running out of funds. Maybe it was 3, very much in a much worse situation, very dire situation. And an amendment was put in, the Social Security Act of 1983, amended the original act, and they extended the tax, or they increased the tax from 5.4% to 6.2% immediately. That dealt with the funding issue, and they raised full retirement age from 65 to 67, and they did that 17 years forward. So nobody between 1983 and 1999 was affected. They all had 65 years as their full retirement age, and then it started to go up 1 month a year after that. Do I think that that's the likely outcome? I think so. But again, I'm not a politician. I can't promise you that, but the alternative would be pretty bad.
All right. Bonzi 1999 is asking, I'm 66 and want to know when to take Social Security. I'm retired right now and have enough money in retirement savings to live.
This is in the course, actually. In fact, in the course, there are 25 calibration questions because there isn't one answer to this. There are actually 4. And when you think about when to take Social Security, you need to think about 4 different things. The first thing is, what are you trying to optimize for? If you looked back historically, there was only one decision. It was the break-even chart. And it was posted on the Social Security website. People would look at the break-even chart and they'd say, I'm healthy, I'm going to claim later. I'm not so healthy, I'm going to claim earlier. And that was kind of it. But fortunately, financial acumen took over and people started realizing that there might be reasons outside of extracting every last dollar that you want to wait or go early. You might want to wait because you want to maximize the survivor benefit for your partner. That would speak to waiting until you're 70 or later anyway. You might want to enjoy life now because you have enough money in your savings and your investments so that you can live comfortably. So you might want to just spend a little bit more now. So take it earlier. You might need the money, and that's a perfectly legitimate reason. I would say that it's not my favorite reason, but it is a perfectly legitimate reason. So you take it early. Or you have some combined things that you're trying to think about. Maybe your partner's not well, or maybe you have to help family members out financially. So there's no one right answer for this because it is person specific. But I can tell you that if you think through the issues, the choice, especially if you have enough to live on, starts to become more clear.
All right. Thank you for that. Live in Tex is asking, I retired at 62. How accurate is the Social Security calculator to project at full FTA 67?
Well, it depends on what you're calling a calculator. I have one on Holy Schmidt, which will tell you what your payment would be at 67, but the basic mechanics behind it is it looks at the early claiming discounts and the late claiming premiums and tells you based on when you want to retire what your payment should look like. But there are others, like the one on the SSA website, which have your base information and they make some assumptions. If the biggest assumption, if you're looking at the SSA website, is they assume that you're going to continue to work until you claim Social Security. And they assume your current salary is the salary that you're going to have between today and the day you claim Social Security. If that's the case, it's pretty accurate. The only thing that comes into play there, though, is that the cost of living adjustment is not built into the Social Security website. Why? Because nobody knows what it's going to be. It could be 3%, it could be 8%. Hopefully it's not 8%. I know everybody likes the idea of 8%, but everything that comes with 8% is not good. It could be 5%, it could be 1%. And so when you look at the number of the SSA website, know that that's in today's dollars, and it assumes that you continue to work and earn exactly what you're earning now up until the time you claim Social Security.
Okay. Queasy Writer is asking, do people delay Social Security benefits until 70 just to be able to convert more to Roth?
Yes, I suppose they would do it, or they could do it. I think that if it were me, I'd want to have another reason besides that. There is a Roth conversion. There's a period in people's lives where they potentially could have zero tax. And I use the word potentially because it's not always the case. But it's from the time you retire until required minimum distributions are put upon you at either age 73 or 75 for most people watching this live stream. That period in between, your income is based on what you take out of your 401k, or if you have a pension, or if you want to take it out of your IRA. You control to some degree what comes out, which means you control the tax. When you take money out of your IRA, in theory, if you were living at home and you didn't with the kids and you weren't paying any bills whatsoever, there's a certain amount you could take out and not pay any taxes on because of just standard deductions, 65 plus deductions, etc. So people will take that period of time and they will convert, they'll engage in Roth conversions. Usually what happens though is they don't shoot for a 0% tax rate. They usually shoot for 12%. And so, or a little bit more, but the lower your tax rate, the more appealing a Roth conversion becomes. So when you claim Social Security, at least part of it can be taxable. Some of that depends on what your other income looks like. If you are single and you're earning less than $25,000 a year in what's called combined income, well, then you can convert. You can everything you earned up until that point is zero taxed. And so theoretically, if you had no money and you took the first $25,000 and you put it all in a Roth, you're paying zero on it. Still, that's not how life really works. People have to pay their bills. So delaying Social Security for Roth conversion is a strategy, but I'd ask you to consider what else you're doing it for, because usually people have two reasons, not just one.
All right, I'm going to bring in a question from email, but our chat box is moving very quickly tonight. A lot of questions coming in. Thank you for those. All right, so a question from Mitch S. Any suggestions for getting money from traditional IRAs and 401ks into Roth IRAs? Is it better to do that before or after retirement when you are dependent on Social Security to some degree?
I had this question last week from a 25-year-old. That was a really astute question. And I know I answered it right, but I also answered it probably too quick. And the person asked the question, they said, is it can I do a Roth conversion at age 25? The answer is yes, you can. And what they were really asking is at age 25, I'm not making a lot of money, and I might have some money in my 401k. I might even be living at home with mom and dad, and therefore would now be a good time to do it. And the answer is probably maybe. I also said something like, but if you're going to think about this, think about how you can put money into a Roth for the rest of your life and really get the balance right from the get-go. Now, when you're thinking about a Roth conversion later on in life, and I answered this question indirectly the last time, it's all about that period between the time you leave your job and the time required minimum distributions occur. And there are actually 4 segments that you need to think about. Segment number 1 is before you reach the point where you're drawing Medicare. Why? Because when you're drawing Medicare, you also have to think about things like IRMA, and those have very specific thresholds. And so you are in a position where they're competing. Roth conversion pushes more income up, which means that you need to think about IRMA. Then the next period is between before you claim Social Security and when you claim Social Security. Why? Because Social Security potentially anyway, raises your taxable income. And then the period between when you're on Medicare and taking Social Security, after that has happened, you got a smaller runway between the time you've basically start taking Social Security and required minimum distributions. The cleanest point generally is the point before you start taking Social Security. Doesn't mean that you can't do it, and you can't do it well, and you can't do it at 100 or zero tax or 12% tax, but it is all about your tax bracket and tax bracket management. That's about the best answer I can give you. I don't have your specifics, but I think that should give you enough to think about.
All right. Toadza Maripa is asking, I'm 62 and planning on working full-time till I'm 70. My question is, I would like to take my Social Security at 67 and invest the money. What do you think about this idea?
2 things. One, if you have an HSA account, you have Social Security, you're going to automatically be enrolled in Medicare Part A, which means that you won't be able to contribute to your HSA account. And so that is something you need to really pay attention to, because the HSA account, for those of you that use it right, and you got to have a certain, almost, I wouldn't call it a perfect setup, but you have to have a reasonably good setup where you're not really claiming a lot of medical expenses, and you've funded part of your 401k up to the employer contribution, and then you're in the HSA, and then you're back into the 401k. But if you are going to be working, once you take Social Security and your employer has 20 or more employees, you're going to automatically be signed up for Medicare Part A. So, and if you're signed up for Medicare Part A, you can't contribute to your HSA account. As far as taking Social Security and investing it, it's not a bad option. I did a video, and it was a painful video. I did a video about 2 years ago doing the math on it. And the math, using certain assumptions, safe assumptions, really showed that it was break even. And it also assumed that you weren't spending your investments in order to live to fund your investments, because it sort of defeats the purpose if you're just taking it out. You're using your Social Security to live in that case, or at least part of it. So I think it's something that you should really sit down with if you want to do it, you should sit down with a spreadsheet if you're good at it, and understand the pros and the cons, understand you're taking more risk with your Social Security payment in what is a reasonably riskless, I don't want to say risk-free, but it's a reasonably riskless payment stream in retirement, and you're locking in at a lower rate. Still, people have done it. Some people swear by it. Others say, I would never do it because I don't want to take on the kind of risk. It's your tolerance for risk and your real tolerance for risk. I know a lot of people that say I have a high risk tolerance, but the minute they lose $1, their risk tolerance changes pretty quickly.
Also, do you happen to know what the name of that video is?
I should know the name of the video, but I've put out like 1,000 videos now. And so off the top of my head, I remember what's in them. But if you go on to the Holy Schmidt YouTube channel, you'll find, and you type in the words, should I invest my Social Security? It will probably find it, because I think YouTube actually searches not only the title, I believe, and I should know this, but I don't know this for a fact. It also searches the content, the description, and it's probably in the description.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And BuzzBuzz5724 is asking, with $9K a month in pensions, should I wait until 67 and my wife at 62, same year, to start drawing Social Security? That is the advice we received from a Social Security counselor. That's what they received at age 59 and 54.
So at 59 and your wife is 54, you're retired and you're receiving $9,000 a month. And your question is, once you reach age 62, should you claim Social Security or let it ride? Is that right?
It's with $9K a month in pensions. Should I wait until 67 and my wife is 62 to start drawing Social Security?
Well, I suppose there are a couple of questions you should ask, which is, do you have a single payee pension or do you have a joint pension? Same thing with your wife, because if one of you passes away, then you're not going to have $9K a month anymore. But the other is that, what are you trying to optimize for? Remember, we talked about that earlier. Are you trying to optimize for the survivor benefit? If you have two pensions that have single life payment, you might want to consider waiting actually until age 70, because you want to optimize for the survivor benefit. Conversely, if you're comfortable with your cash flow and you want to enjoy life now, that's something to consider too. Whoever gives you the number, take it or wait, is optimizing for probably optimizing for the biggest payout to you, which isn't the wrong advice, but it's not necessarily advice that everybody is right for everybody, because everybody's situation is different.
All right. William Kalita is asking, should you apply for Social Security sooner than age 70 in case Congress does nothing?
I mean, I think we covered this a bit earlier. You're not going to, you have to come up with a view on this point and ask yourself, what are you going to get by filing early? There isn't a situation that's being presented to the American people where you're going to get 3 years of Social Security payment and that's going to zero. What what's being presented is that you are getting a certain number of Social Security payments the size that they are now, and then it's going to be reduced by 22%. If it were me, I think it's unlikely that that's going to happen. If it were me, I would wait and make the decision that's best for me based on the information that I have today. But people are different, and I can't really tell you to make it a zero probability outcome in your head, because I can't legitimately say that that's not true. I just think it's a highly unlikely probability.
All right, let's take an emailed question from Roy N. He's asking, I turned 70 years old on December 22nd, 2026. To maximize my monthly payment and avoid having to apply for retroactive payments if my timing is wrong, do I request my first payment be in December 2026 or January 2027?
Well, understand how Social Security is paid out. First of all, you would want your Social Security to start in December, but Social Security pays in arrears, so you won't get your payment until January. But if you're trying to maximize, you're trying to get every last dollar out of it, which is a good strategy since you're almost there, then tell them that you want to start Social Security in December and you'll get your payment in January.
All right, Charles S. is asking, I was born in November of 1959. What age do I have to start taking my RMD from my IRA? It's an emailed question as well.
November of 59, and I know why he's asking the question. In November of 59, your RMD starts at age 73. Now, you are 2 months away from it starting. Sorry, it's age 73. Now, you're 2 months away from it starting at age 75. And so had you been born in January of 60, then your RMDs would be 75, not starting at 75, not 73. Unfortunately, I don't make the rules. Those just are the rules. And the rules say at 59, your RMD start at 73. At 60, they start at born in 1959, your RMD start at 73. Born in 1960, they start at 75.
Okay, Queasy Rider, we hope that you are back on and can hear, and is asking, how many times have Social Security benefits fallen behind USA inflation by, say, more than a percentage point?
I'm sorry, can you read that again?
How many times has Social Security benefits fallen behind USA inflation by more than a percentage point?
It depends on your definition of inflation, I suppose. Social Security is based off of the Consumer Price Index. That's the inflation measure. There will be a lot of people out there who say, well, but that's not the true measure of inflation because they adjust prices based on consumption. That's true. If you, the example I use is that if you are a steak eater and you like only filet mignon, but filet mignon prices have gone up 50% and ribeye has only gone up 25%, you switch to ribeye, well, you've substituted. And so by the Consumer Price Index standards, the new price point is actually the ribeye steak. And take that and multiply it times a car or a car with electric windows, when the first car that they put in the Consumer Price Index had crank windows. I mean, you can actually take this and say there are a lot of things that this affects. So if you assume that you're saying ignore spending behavior and how do people, how far back has this been, it's going to miss because of substitution. The fact is, people don't spend like that though, and nobody. I don't spend like that. If filet mignon is, I don't know how much steak is, but if it's is it $10 a pound? I don't know. Somebody tell me what filet mignon is. $10 a pound. I don't eat a lot of red meat, but whatever the answer is, and ribeye is $5 a pound, I'd probably go with the ribeye. But that's just because that's how I think. Most people don't think about it. Would I feel a hardship between the two? No. So in one sense, yeah, the Consumer Price Index is probably wrong for true inflation. And there will be a lot of conspiracy theorists out there who will show you that it's not 2.8%, it's 12%. And they'll point to things that people bought in the 50s and 60s, like the car with windowless or with crank windows, and compare that to today. I don't think it's that far off. What might be off, though, is how it's subdivided. And the Consumer Price Index is one big basket. But then you take that and say, but how do we measure Social Security? It's not the whole basket. You got a bunch of people that are spending a lot of money on things like Medicare or medical expenses. And you got other people that are spending money to send their kids to college. One of the baskets is called CPI-W. W stage stands for urban wage earners and clerical workers. And that's the basket that Social Security is actually calculated on. The cost of living is actually calculated on. And that, I can promise you, doesn't represent how you spend. Why? Because you'd have to spend your money on every single thing in that basket the way that they calculate the basket. The minute you deviate an inch, it doesn't represent you anymore. It may be bigger. You may have a bigger pricing COLA adjustment. Most people would say it's smaller. And the reason is because the better measure is something called CPI-E, which factors in a lot more medical costs, which happen at age 65 plus. And CPI-E is one of the things I truly believe should be the swap out, because if you're going to have an increase in someone's cost of living, it really should represent, you should have at least a fighting chance of trying to make it as close as possible. And I don't think anybody disagrees with this, by the way. I think both Republicans and Democrats, nobody said, no, this is a lousy idea. Both parties actually, I think, agree with this. I would say just implementation is hard. And so the long-winded answer to your question is it probably doesn't reflect your inflation.
All right. Buzz had the question about how he's 59 and his wife is 54, and he clarified his question. So I just want to make sure it was answered. If so, just let me know that it was done. My wife and I will retire at 59 and 54 respectively with $9,000 a month in pensions. We received advice from a Social Security counselor who recommended I take my Social Security at 67 and my wife at 62. Do you agree?
I think I answered that. The only difference there is I forgot to say good job on getting out of the rat race at 59 and 54. That's well done. Most people don't do that, but hopefully I already answered that question.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure. He reworded it and it might have been in the moment. And so I just wanted to make sure it was clarified. William Kalita is asking, in general, does the adjustment to Social Security for inflation really keep up with the senior cost of living in retirement?
I think we just answered that question, didn't we? I think it was the same question, but it was the same question about inflation. And my answer was CPI-W, probably not. CPI-E, probably closer, but everybody's individual inflation is going to be different.
Okay, good. So Carlos Sarias is asking, I'm 10 years away from Social Security at 62. Shall I claim at 62 70%, instead removing from my IRAs, making 12 to 15%? I feel the less I take from my IRAs will lower my tax bill.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. And actually, I just put out a video I think you guys should check out. It's one of my better. It looks like somebody just signed up for the course. That's funny. It's one of my better videos. It's called "Skip the Roth Conversion, Do This Instead" from 62 to 73. And I'm gonna ruin the punchline for you. It's going to show you the math behind an alternative to a Roth conversion, long-term capital gains, and how to get a zero tax rate on those. So there are so many things about tax planning that you can't answer on a live stream because everybody's situation is different. Do you have money in a brokerage account where you could take money out and use it at a zero tax rate? Because that's the premise of the video, up to a certain amount. Or do you have other income how are you going to pay the bills? And so the long and the short of it is it really depends on your specific tax situation. There's a great software out there, Bolden, which is an affiliate of ours. I personally use it. That's the only financial planning software that I use. And if you're interested, they have 2 weeks free. And using our affiliate URL, it's go.bolden.com/Schmidt. And if you if you go there, try it out for 2 weeks, and you can do a lot of what if scenarios. You can do up to 10 different what if scenarios, 3 at a time, side by side, and you can make a lot of these decisions more clearly. People can't do this in their head. It's hard to do it on a spreadsheet. You make a mistake on a spreadsheet, even one cell and the whole thing falls apart. But good modeling software like Bolton is probably where you want to start.
Okay, and I will be putting that in the chat box in just a second. I will give you the next question, though, from David Isabel. I plan to take Social Security at 70. My wife is 6 years younger than me. If she takes hers at 62, will she be eligible for my full benefit when I die?
The Social Security survivor benefit, yes, she will. I thought you were going to ask what happens to her spousal benefit. The survivor benefit and the spousal benefit are two different benefits that go to the same person. The spousal benefit is a percentage of your benefit, and people maximize the spousal benefit by waiting until their own full retirement age. A spouse waits till his or her own full retirement age, and they can get up to 50%. They'll get 50% of your primary insurance amount. In fact, it doesn't matter when you file for your own Social Security. If your partner waits until they're at their own full retirement age, they get 50%. You could file at age 62, and they could wait until their own full retirement age, and they could get 50% of your primary insurance amount, whereas you get 70% because you filed at 62. But if you wait, the longer you wait, the longer the survivor benefit, the larger the survivor benefit, the larger the base becomes for your spouse. And there are things that reduce it, like their age. A spouse can claim the survivor benefit as early as age 60, but it gets cut down to, I think, 71.5%. But if they wait to their own full retirement age to claim the survivor benefit, and you wait until age 70, then they're going to get the same benefit that you had.
All right, William Kalita is asking another question. Is the tax on Social Security a double tax since we already paid income tax on it? Is that fair?
Do I think it's fair? No. Is it a double tax? Sort of. Let me explain to you why I say sort of. When you pay into Social Security, there used to be no tax on Social Security. So you pay in to Social Security and everything came out as if it was a Roth. There was no tax on it. When the Social Security Act of 1983 came online, the politicians said, look, we noticed that we're giving people 100% of their Social Security payment with no tax, but their employer's matching half and their employer's taking a deduction on their half. So the employee, yes, they're putting in 6.2% or 5.4% at the time. So let's look at that and say, they're not going to have to pay tax on that. So 50% of Social Security isn't taxable, but the employer, they're getting the tax break. So the other half potentially is taxable. And that went on for a while. And then in the rationale was fuzzy at best, but it was enough, I suppose. But then in 1993, they just threw rational thinking out the door, and they said, let's make the top end 85%. So it is double taxation, certainly on at least 35% potentially of Social Security, because your employer took a deduction. But I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. Is it over the top? Maybe not. It is double taxation to some degree. The funny thing about it is the tax code in terms of the thresholds hasn't changed. Those thresholds have been in place since the 80s and the 90s when the actual amounts came online. And so you probably wouldn't have paid tax on your earnings back then. Now you have a higher probability of paying tax. Although on the flip side, there are a lot of standard deductions, a lot more standard deductions now for people who file. And those standard deductions tend to wipe out the tax on Social Security. For, I think the number is 85% of the people who file taxes at age 65 plus don't pay tax. So it may be a little less than that, but it's a big number. So is it double taxation? You could argue at least that 35% is, if you realize it, but you have to realize it, which means that you actually have to owe tax.
All right, W. Rod is asking, are Social Security payments considered passive income or no? Can I invest Social Security payments into 457B plans?
Well, you can invest your Social Security payment. That's a very specific question, and I'll be candid. I'd have to actually spend a couple of minutes thinking about that. But know that when you get your Social Security payment, once it hits your account, it's your money. You can do with it what you could do with your other money. If you're investing your other money in 457B plans, then it's your money. You should be able to put it in a 457B plan as well after it comes to you. If you're asking, can I directly go invest my Social Security payment into a 457B plan and get some sort of tax advantage from that? I don't think so, but I'd have to spend some time on that. If this is an important question to you, send us an email at livestream@holyschmidt.com, and I'll have someone do the research for you.
All right, William is asking. William's had a bunch of questions. Thank you for your questions, William. In general, are retired folks pushed in a higher tax bracket after retirement or lower tax bracket?
Well, the pushing happens from the person's side. So it's how you arrange your life, I suppose. You could arrange your life so that you have nothing but long-term capital gains in retirement. And we talked about it before, but you could have a lot of long-term capital gains, close to, I think it's $100,000 for a married couple, and pay no tax on that. Conversely, if you put all of your money into a 401k and you have no Roth type of investments and no investments, taxable investments like brokerage investments, then you're more likely to have a tax, because you're taking money that you put in pre-tax out, and you have to pay tax on it, or at least it becomes taxable. So I don't think anybody's pushing. I think that people are more likely to be in a lower tax bracket when they go into retirement. We talked about that earlier, than they are during their working years, simply because during their working years they're out there, they're buying things, their career is growing, and so, at least hopefully, and so the year, or the period of time where people traditionally have lower taxes, is between age 62 and 73, with the biggest bump before they take Social Security, or the biggest improvement before they take Social Security. Traditionally, it depends on the individual.
All right, great. So let's take a question that was emailed in from Victor. I'm 65 and want to delay my Social Security benefits until age 70, but I'm unclear on how my years between now and age 70 will impact my benefit. If I don't work at all between now and then, what impact will that have? If I work only a little or a lot and contribute via taxes, what impact will that have?
Well, I think your question is working and claiming Social Security. What does that look like? In 2026, you can earn up to $24,480 in a year and not have to give any of your Social Security payment back. That's $2,040 a month. Your first year, it's measured monthly, because most people don't retire on January 1st. And so it would be unfair to use their income for the year. If they retired, say, 2/3 of the way through, they're already over the limit many times. So it's measured monthly in year one. If your question is about tax on Social Security, it's all going to depend on what your earned income is going to be, and it's all about earned income. It's really I think that, sorry, your possibility of having to give back Social Security. It's all about your earned income. So that's the big question. If you have to give it back, it's because you earned too much, and so I suppose it's a good thing.
All right, Joe English is asking, can Social Security be saved legitimately? We are looking down the barrel of a 20 to 25% reduction as we approach insolvency. They knew in 1984 this needed to be resolved, and here we are.
Well, they resolved the 1984 issue in 1983. I think that, I mean, just to actually look at the numbers you're talking about, the difference between 1983, when we had the fix, so to speak, and now is, it's 45 years. So they wouldn't have been able to predict with any degree of accuracy the slowing population and jobs offshoring and all the rest of it. Can it be legitimately saved? I would think that the solution is relatively straightforward, but it's not one people are going to like. The solution that they had last time is that they raised the tax on the FICA tax from 5.4 to 6.2%. When that happened, the people in their 30s and 40s, 20s, I suppose, were really unhappy, and the people in their 50s and 60s were really, really happy. Those same people that at the time were 20 years old are now reaching full retirement age, or reaching the age where they can file for Social Security anyway. And I'm sure that they were happy. So the solution is you either need to raise tax or cut benefits. And I think cutting benefits is, at least extreme cutting benefits is going to be hard for people to live on. So the other side is you have to find tax money. And there are a lot of different options for that have been discussed. One is just an increase across the board. One is to have that donut hole that people talk about and tax people at a certain threshold, a certain income threshold. You could increase tax on the employer, I suppose. I don't think that's likely, but there are a lot of ways to do it. But it has to be bipartisan. That's the issue. One thing I think is pretty certain, though, is that doing nothing means that politicians are going to lose their job, because when, as I said at the beginning of the live stream, when mom and dad start moving back in with the kids, or worse, then people are going to start pointing fingers, and politicians know that. So I would say that this is something that, in my opinion, will get fixed. I just don't think it's going to get fixed this year or next year.
All right, Janet McGrath is asking, can a person contribute to a Roth IRA after he or she retires, or do they have to be employed?
The most common move after retirement is a Roth conversion. And so I would think if you are considering your options, that would be your go-to move. And it's the one that most people think about when they think about what to do after retirement. There are so many options in retirement. Roth conversions are probably the most solid, and they are far more popular. So you can contribute, but I think that your first move is to look at your Roth conversion option, because I think that's a better choice for most people anyway.
All right, Joe Winkard is asking, I'm 62 and just retired, and I have over 35 years of working, and 29 out of the 35 top years reached the max Social Security contribution. If I wait until 65 to collect, will the current amount show on the Social Security site be less?
So if your question is, I'm contributing, I've earned the maximum, and the amount on is the amount on the Social Security site correct? As long as you continue to earn the maximum before you claim, the answer is yes. Did I get the question right?
Well, it says that, so 62 just retired and have over 35 years of working. 9 of the 35 top years reached max contribution. So he just wants to know if he waits until 65 to collect, will the current amount shown on the Social Security site be less? Maybe because he had already retired a few years prior.
Your Social Security payment is based on your best 35 years of earnings. If you're looking at the number today, and the number is less than you think, it's possible that, well, let me step back. If you don't have 35 years at the maximum, then the number that you see today could be lower. The number that you're looking at on the Social Security website assumes that you continue to earn what you're earning today, and so it could go down if you don't have 35 years at the maximum. Do I think it'll go down a lot? I don't think so, but it could go down a little bit. If you're at the maximum, your buckets are much smaller. What I mean by buckets is Social Security payments are based on three things. They're based on your total lifetime earnings indexed to today's dollars. They're based on that number divided by 420 fed into a formula called bend points, and the lowest portion of the payback from the bend point is at the high earning level. So the difference doesn't change a lot, and it's based on how long you wait. And so if you don't continue to earn the maximum, it could go down a little bit, but it doesn't go down a lot. Joe, can you, that previous question, I think I misunderstood it. Can you ask me that Roth question one more time?
The Roth question, yes. I'm sorry, I moved down while I'm looking for that again, just to let you know that Jean Marclentinier let us know that filet mignon is $10 per pound.
Yeah, that was pretty good, right?
Was $10 per pound over a decade ago.
Oh, well.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't contribute to that. I'm a vegan. Okay, so we're looking for the Roth conversion question.
So I think I'm going to restate the question because I think I misunderstood it.
It is. Can a person contribute to a Roth IRA after he or she retires, or do they have to be employed? Was that it?
They have to have earned income to contribute to a Roth IRA. Apologies, I thought we were talking about a Roth conversion. So if you want to contribute to a Roth IRA, you have to have earned income to do it.
All right, let's take a question from TGE that was emailed in. I asked the Social Security Administration what my benefit would be for October, November, and December of this year. The representative gave me monthly numbers that are $600 per month higher than what the website is showing for this coming January. Can I believe her? Why is the website so far off if it is only missing 2026 earnings?
It seems like a lot. It seems like there's something that you need to look into further here. $600 is a big miss. You could make an argument that it might be $100 off or $200 off, but $600, that's a lot. So I would go back and find out what assumptions they're using to determine that $600, or if there's information that they have that hasn't been, and their website hasn't been updated. Sometimes there's some earning history that just hasn't found its way in there. Check your earnings history on the site and make sure that it's good through 2025. Those would be my recommendations for you. Check your earnings history, have a conversation. That does seem like a lot.
Okay, we are rounding the top of the hour, not quite there yet, so we might have time for just a few more. And a question once again came in regarding the timing for applying to Social Security. Might be a good idea for another video. Who knows? But it says, I read that most folks apply for Social Security at age 62. Do you believe it would be more beneficial if most folks applied for Social Security at age 70?
There was a study done with data from the University of Michigan, and it's actually cited in my course, Social Security Simplified. In fact, if you go on to the landing page, it talks about it. And the data said 90% of people who take Social Security take it at the wrong time. And it looked at the data and ran thousands of simulations based on the actual outcomes of those people and determined that 90% of them got it wrong. Now, what it was optimizing for was maximum payment. And so if you're optimizing for maximum payment, the conclusion was you look at this pool of people and a very large percent of them filed too early. And actually some of them filed too late because they were either ill or they were unlucky or some other reason where they should have filed at a different time. But it skewed towards waiting. Now, that assumes that you're just talking about maximizing your payment, but we covered off why the payment isn't optimizing payment isn't necessarily the best thing for everybody. And so it depends on what you're optimizing for. But some people will take it early, some people will take it late. Depends on if what their reasons are. But strictly speaking, from a financial perspective, the data skewed higher, meaning waiting a little longer.
Okay, we are over time, but Melody just reposted hers. We missed hers. How does the HSA account work if there's money still in there when Medicare starts? Does Medicare expenses come out of the HSA?
You can't pay for directly anyway. You can pay for Medicare. You can't pay for Medigap, but you can pay for Medicare Part B and Medicare Advantage out of an HSA account, and you can pay for deductibles and copays out of an HSA account, provided that they're approved expenses. If you wanted to go and have some cosmetic surgery that doesn't fall in the line of medically necessary, I don't know if that would count or not, but most expenses would probably be considered approved. And a lot of people use money in their HSA account to fund long-term care 30 years later. That's an excellent strategy for an HSA account. Put your money in an HSA account, put it in investments, don't leave it in cash, and let it grow and see what happens. The good thing about an HSA account is that after age 65, you can use it like an IRA. And if you take it out for non-medical expenses, you pay tax on it, but no penalty. And if you take it out for qualifying medical expenses, you don't pay tax on it. So it's a wonderful account. I can't talk highly enough about it, but it's something that most people, frankly, they don't do. And I think they should. For the vast majority of people who say no to it, they should at least give it another look.
All right. Well, we have definitely gone over time. There are still more questions coming in and more emailed questions. So we'll bring those to you next week. Thank you so much for all of the chat and people talking to each other. So we will see you next week. But Jeff, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, gang. It's 8 o'clock here in New York. Actually, it's 8:04. So you stay late again. Thank you. And we will see you next Tuesday. Jill, thanks for your expert guidance through the last hour and 4 minutes, and look forward to doing the same thing next week. Take care, everybody. See you next week.